I'm Michella Chester, joined by Wayne Staats, our NCAA lead bracket reporter. Wayne, it's been a 68-team men's bracket since 2011, which was the first year of the first four. Obviously, the last four at-large teams and the last four teams on the committee's overall seed list play in Dayton for a spot in the 64-team bracket of March Madness every year. But can you just dive into that a little bit more and what people need to know about the first four?
Yeah, I think the cool thing about it is what it means for seeding. Now, when you say the last four overall teams on the list, that means most of the time it's the last four AQs, which means they're going to be in the 16 spot. So we kind of know that those teams are going to face number one seeds in the first round. But the last four at larges, that's where it's kind of fun, because based on bracketing principles that can change from year to year. They've been as high as 10, as low as 14. Again, depending on where they fall on the seed list line and the principles that the committee has to do in terms of filling out the rest of the bracket. So that kind of fun. They can pop up different spots every year. So it's kind of interesting to see where they kind of land on the seed line and where they kind of slot in there and what teams they face in the first round.
You've been looking at brackets for over a decade, so can you just dive into how successful first four teams have done in March Madness history?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm not saying that these are teams that you should be picking to win the championship, because that hasn't happened yet. But I think if you're thinking of teams that could maybe overperform based on what their seed says they should do, if that makes any sense. Especially if they're that 11 seed, which has a history of very strong overperforming in terms of going on these long runs to the Elite Eight or Final Four. Right from the beginning it happened too. In 2011, VCU went from first four to Final Four as 11 seed, and then 10 years later UCLA did the same thing, also as an 11 seed from first four to Final Four. So these teams have, at least in terms of recent history since we started in the first four, have done pretty well once they get out of there. Only one time has at least one first four team not advanced to at least the second round or round of 32, and that was 2019. Other than that, these teams usually, I'm not saying these every year these teams go on the Elite Eight runs, but they'll pull these 12 over 5s, 11 over 6s. LaSalle made the Sweet 16 as well from the first four. So it has happened. So if you want, you can maybe take a flyer and a team that you're really into. History says that at least one of them is going to win at least one game once you get into the round of 64, the first round.
So how should bracket pickers kind of take this data and use it to their advantage? Because what I'm getting from this is don't go crazy, but they're pretty successful in the early round.
Yeah, especially teams, that, maybe think that maybe they're underseeded or teams that could be better than they were. UCLA is a great example of that. That was a very talented team that just came together at the right time to make that run to the Final Four. VCU was kind of maybe more surprised, but it seemed that, very fun to watch. They were kind of got there and made some upsets along the way, including beating a number one seed Kansas in the Elite Eight. So yeah, it's kind of where we're not saying that just because a team you think maybe is the best one, if the district's 11 or 12, means they're definitely going to win. But I think it's more of just, if it's a good place to start, I'll put it that way. If there's a good place do you want to think a team that could maybe make the second round or Sweet 16, that's where you can start. 5 of these teams have made at least a Sweet 16, so it's not just those 2 outliers we mentioned about going to the Final Four. These teams have gone even to the second weekend. So again, it changes every year. We'll see, what happens going forward, but it's kind of a good starting point for where you want to pick some upsets maybe in the first round.